is Emily Iannielli, and I'm a transsexual woman pre-op. I also call myself a transgender girl, but it's all on my feelings and how my emotions are in that particular moment. Sometimes I want to be like a young girl, and sometimes I want to be a woman, though in reality I'm not a woman or a girl. I'm transgender, and it's not an easy situation to be in. I've struggled basically for my whole life, basically. I was struggling as a little boy with my gender, and I felt that I should have been a girl, and that I can remember as early as age 3, when I was just a little kid wanting to wear a dress and be treated like all the other girls. So it was very hard for me to fit in and make friends, but I tried my best, and I was a good kid. I never got into trouble. I tried my best to be polite and listen and show respect to other people, other children, other adults, my parents, my sisters. But I was a loner. I didn't really have many friends growing up. I was involved in some sports in my youth and in my high school days, and I tried to fit in as best I could. I was very quiet, very shy. I never dated girls, even though I enjoyed looking at them and admiring them from a distance. I was too insecure, too shy. Plus I was battling with my gender identity. I knew in my heart I was female, even though I was born male. So I had to reconcile that, and it was very hard for me. So I couldn't really have any normal types of relationships. I just didn't feel comfortable, and it was hard when you are growing up and you have friends that are dating or are at least trying. I never really tried, but I also didn't feel very comfortable, so I was battling with that, and I was pretty shy in all areas of my life. The only thing that got me through was a coach, my need to study hard, my discipline, my parents, my family, and my cross-dressing, which was a part of my life, which helped me deal with my transgender identity, my female identity. I loved clothes, I always have, and I always will, and dresses are my favorite. I have many dresses, and I used to remember when I was younger putting dress underneath my male clothing, and I did that quite often. But I was sad because I couldn't be myself. I had to pretend, and that was not an easy thing. But when you're transgender, you have to try to do the best and make opportunities last as long as you can, because you don't have that ability to, in most cases, dress as freely as you wish. I had to dress behind closed doors, basically. I was living in the closet most of my life, and the way you see me now wasn't how I used to dress. I used to wear an outfit like this, of course, but it was underneath men's suits, so it wasn't really satisfying. In fact, it was very depressing, but it was my only way to connect as a female and to enjoy that aspect of femininity that I so needed to connect with. And I was thrilled every time I dressed. It made me happy. And you don't know the significance of that, but if you're in a situation similar to myself or other transgender people, you would understand. We who are transgender have a common bond, and we go through all of the ups and downs along the way. But if you hold on to hope and you are very serious about your transition, and you have a good system of support put into place with good medical doctors and therapists and psychiatrists, then you are starting on the right track. There's a lot involved when you undertake transitioning, and it's not easy, and you're gonna have to make sacrifices, and you have no control over people and what they feel or what they do as a result of you deciding to transition. And it's not an easy task to come up with answers or a way to address your transitional situation with family, friends, employer, relatives, whoever, and you have to just try your best to make the best of the situation that you're in. I think one of the best sources of support I found was going online. I found the internet very helpful, very useful, and I learned about support groups, and I started to make plans to attend, and actually I found 2 support groups, one in New York City at the LGBT Center on 13th Street, and another one at the, I guess they call it GLBT Center in Bayshore on Park Avenue. And I've been lately going to the Bayshore Center, which is more convenient, and I identify with a lot of my transgender friends. We have a good mix, male to female, female to male, and I am mostly bonding with male to female transgender, of course, but I do have some female to male friends. I'm not hypocritical, but it does make me wonder why a female would want to become a guy. It doesn't register in my mind, but I guess they think similarly. Why would a guy want to become a girl? So I guess we are on opposite sides of the fence, but we have a common bond, and I don't judge anyone. So I just am there for support and to make friends, whether they're male to female or female to male. It doesn't really matter to me. As long as they're good people, then they're my friend. And I try to be a good friend, good listener, going through transition, struggling with gender identity, is a very hard life, and you affect many people in your life. You don't intend to, but it's just the natural course of your transition, because people saw you one way and now you're going counter to that, and it's very hard for others to adjust. One day you're a guy and the next day you're a girl, and they just, some get freaked out. They don't understand it. They look at it as if it's an abomination, which it really isn't. It's in my eyes, it's a gift to be able to live two genders distinctly. I prefer, obviously, to live as a female. That's how I identify. That's how I always identified. I knew when I was 3, I cried myself to sleep under the covers in one of my sister's dresses. So I certainly know what it means to be gender dysphoric. I definitely had gender dysphoria. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but I knew that I struggled with who I was, and I knew in my heart that I was a girl, and I always felt that way. So there's no doubt in my mind that I'm doing the right thing. My major concerns, obviously, are my son, my family, and making sure that they know that I'm still here, and I will always be here, and that I love my family, I love my wife, I love my son, and I always reassure my son that I'm still his dad no matter what, and he never has to worry about that, and I'm just doing what makes me happy. I'm finally living as a female, which is what I always felt I was, but I do have very proud moments as a male, marrying a beautiful woman, whom I've married now 17 years, and both of us having a beautiful son, which my courageous and beautiful wife gave birth to, which was not an easy experience for her, but it was a very joyful experience. I had the easy part, of course, but that's my proudest moment, is the birth of my son. And when I saw my wife deliver him, it was truly a miracle. It was amazing. So I always feel a deep connection with my son, and he is what keeps me going, because I do get depressed, and I struggle quite a bit with depression. At times I felt suicidal, wound up in the psych hospital several times, and I'm a regular now with the police. They know me, they care about me, they're good people, they have a heart, and I'm just lucky to have good people like that in my life who care. So I must say that I am a lucky girl in that sense. But I'm still very lonely. I don't have a lot of friends. friends. I do have some. And I did lose friends when I came out. They couldn't handle the fact that I was transitioning from male to female, so they just walked away. They abandoned me, and I just don't understand why people think the way they do, why they act the way they do, what is so bad or terrible about a male who identifies as female and takes action. That's all I'm doing. I knew when I was young that I felt like a girl, and I stopped those feelings most of my life, but they they came back, and I couldn't control them. They just took over, and it's hard to explain it, but if you're transgender or transsexual, you'll know what I'm talking about. Those feelings that you suppress will always come back up to the surface. So you have to address it as early as possible. Certainly I don't believe in conversion therapy. I think that that's a horrendous treatment for a transgender individual. Just look at how Leela Alcorn, the young 17-year-old teenage male to female transgender girl, was affected by that form of therapy that her parents insisted that she get. And they didn't even address her with her female name. They addressed her with the male name she was born with that they gave her. And it was just very heart-wrenching for me to see what that girl had to bear with, and an unaccepting family, which pushed her over the edge, unfortunately, where she wrote a suicide note on her account for Tumblr, and then she killed herself by walking into traffic on an interstate highway. So you never know, these are young kids. There was also recently a 15-year-old female to male transgender kid who also committed suicide, and he wrote also a suicide note on his Tumblr page, basically ripping apart his family, I guess his parents or his mom, for not accepting him and giving him grief. And he just said, I'm trying not to hurt you or anyone, but I'm not strong enough to go on, and I just want to end my pain. Basically, to that extent he wrote, and he was gone. It's very tragic, but unfortunately that's the life of transgender individuals. A lot of them struggle with finances, with emotional problems. They are not always comfortable or confident with their transition, and they have to match up with lots of obstacles, which for most of us is normal, but for a transgender or transsexual individual, it's more than 10 or even more times harder because of their perceived gender and their actual gender. And people will laugh or mock or ask and will try to learn, but I don't know if that's sincerity, or if it's exploitation. But I find that there are people out there that come across as suave and wanting to have relationships when they don't even know who you are. So I'm very skeptical about meeting people, even on Facebook, the way they send me all sorts of messages, I'm just a transgender girl. I've always knew in my heart I was a girl, but I'm not used to attention. I never had attention like this, so it makes me very uncomfortable. All I want to do is continue forward with my transition, and hopefully one day to share my story. That's something that I think is very important, and I have to take good care of my family. I've been dealing with transgender issues since a 3-year-old and all throughout my life. And I'm very proud of the kids of today who have the courage to come out and tell their parents and their family, because I didn't. But, it's mine is a kind of what's a good term? I don't know. I can't think. But our situation is very unique. I was born a male, and now I'm transitioning to become a female. And my wife was born a female, and she's slowly getting accustomed to my transition, but she still doesn't approve of it. So I have to basically try my best to be supportive and to hopefully get my wife to attend some open meetings with our son if possible, so she can see that we're all good people, but we have our struggle, which is, in our case, gender. It's not a very common disorder, but nonetheless it is a disorder, and it is due to a disconnect between the body and the mind. The mind tells me that I'm female, but my body obviously knows it's male, so I have a conflict, and sometimes I try to run away from it, or I try to face it head on, and I believe the best way is that I treat this as a heads-on project that I need to finish. And if I ever have questions, I can reach out to you or post, but I need to allow myself to express me as a person. I've hid in the closet so long, and I just am tired of living in the closet. I feel much happier now. I feel alive, and I feel like I'm doing all I can to make a positive difference in my life. And for me, once I started to see the results of my transition, the smoother skin, that's also attributed to my electrolysis sessions, in addition to my hormones that I take, has a good effect on the skin where it softens it. So, and I use some creams for my skin, and my hair I get highlighted. I go to a nice salon in Levittown. It's called Mirage in Levittown. They have great girls there that do great jobs, make you look like a princess. And I am, trying to rebuild my relationships with my wife and my son. But I believe in my son's case that we are very connected to each other, and we understand each other, and we love each other unconditionally. So I think that that's one of the aspects of my transition that I was concerned about, was how it was going to affect my son and my family, including my wife and mother-in-law. But my son seemed to take it very well after, a period of some confusion. But now he embraces me and fully accepts me, and he calls me dad still, which I'm okay with. I always encourage my son to call me dad because that's what I am biologically, and I would never tell my son to not do that. I know he's more comfortable calling me dad, and that's perfectly fine with me, and it's normal. And kids should have that chance to continue as if nothing's changed. They need that. So I definitely have to keep on top of things so I don't have to worry about the future, that we can save and protect and provide for our own feelings of insecurity. I do not want to live an insecure life anymore. I need to be confident. I need to be more aggressive, but not in a masculine way. I need to be aggressive in a feminine way. I also need to believe in myself and to reconnect maybe with some of my background, and make sure I can get good references, and just try my best and not give up. I didn't give up through my transition, which is still an ongoing process, and it will continue for the rest of my life. I'm going to be on hormones, the estradiol for estrogen, and the spironolactone, the testosterone blocker, for quite a while. I have no idea how long, or but from my perspective now, until I stop breathing. So I'll be active doing videos for a whole lifetime, chronicling my experiences being a transgender woman and raising a son, and having a wife from a foreign country, and my mother-in-law, of course, who's part of the family, and just wanting to fit in and find friends and be happy and just enjoy life now as I live full-time 24/7 as a woman. And these are the kinds of clothes I love to wear. I wear these every day, clothes like this. Dresses are my favorite, and I love matching jackets. I like to learn how to be more confident in how I walk in women's heels. Though I don't usually wear heels, I don't even have a pair of high heel shoes. I have intermediate heel shoes, which for me are perfect, and they're just high enough to elevate me slightly, and they're perfectly made, so I hear that clickety-clack when I walk, which I like. That's one of the ultimate sounds of femininity, and I always dreamed one day to be able to do that. Walk into a hallway